Ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Wilson here with Adam Burke MacDougall on this episode of Fighters, Coaches, and Fathers. And Adam, congratulations on your win at MFC2 in Warman, Saskatchewan. It was an incredible night and an incredible fight.
Yeah, it was awesome. I've never traveled outside the province for an MMA fight yet, outside New Brunswick. So it was definitely a different experience, having to fly and get to a new town and stuff like that. So for the fight to go the way it did was obviously great as well. It was a great experience.
Yeah, fantastic work, and we loved having you there. Very professional and pretty athletic. But we'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the interview. But talk to me a little bit about your journey into mixed martial arts, starting from, growing up, little baby Adam Burke MacDougall. Where your parents from? Have you always been on the East Coast? How did this all start for you?
Well, I'm from a small town of Antigonish, Nova Scotia. And I'm not even from the actual town, about 15 minutes outside of a small town. So pretty rural, just scattered houses throughout rural community. Definitely grew up running around the woods in your underwear and all that stuff. So I definitely have a lot of memories and pictures of very early on, maybe 6, 7 years old or earlier. There's pictures of me with a karate gi of some sort, like not a real one, but just like a kid's one. And I remember obsessing over being a ninja for the longest time, whether it was the Ninja Turtles, the Power Rangers, or whatever it was. I think every little boy has a part of them that wants to be a bit of a ninja inside them. And so that really stuck with me. And then maybe about 11 years old, I got introduced into Taekwondo, a small club in my town. And my cousin and best friend, both sides of me growing up, my best friend over here, my cousin who was my age, pretty much one of my best friends as well, on the other side of me growing up, they were both into Taekwondo. So once we got really hard into it after a few years, when we all got our black belt, junior black belts and stuff like that, started going to nationals, and we dedicate our time.
So you started. So let me get this straight, because I can relate. So you're like, okay, when I used to do karate, everybody wanted to be a ninja. Did you have the two-toed boots?
I didn't have the boots.
I was thinking about getting them, and I remember when I was in Regina, Saskatchewan, I used to dress up like a ninja in a hooded. It's probably safer that you were out in the woods. I would go out across the street on Dudney Avenue to where they had exhibition storage. And I'd sneak into I probably shouldn't say it's probably illegal. And I'd go run around and pretend I was like this 11-year-old ninja kid. My mom worked night shifts. I don't know. Maybe that's who I am right now. I'm kind of like a street kid that had a loving family. I don't know, but
yeah,
I love that story, and it's funny because it's almost like, I don't know what happened with Taekwondo, but almost everybody we know started out as kids in Taekwondo, and then you moved into the junior black belt stuff. Talk to me about that experience. Did you go to tournaments and that type of thing?
Yeah, we were always going to all the tournaments. My parents were amazing to travel around. So were my cousin's parents and my neighbors as well on the other side of me. It was either my parents or them, or these parents over here taking us around, carting us around, paying money. So we all had great support growing up with our martial arts, with our Taekwondo. And at a very early age, the Taekwondo club, it was owned by someone that wasn't from our town, our Master Lawrence Russell. And he was from a town maybe an hour away. And so there was always university students and stuff like that coming through that would teach us, and never a dedicated person. Not never, but very often we would cycle through different instructors. And so eventually, maybe, I can't really remember, but sometime in high school, we were the instructors. We ran the club. And this was a pretty good sized club. Like me and my cousin and my friend, high school students, we were the instructors. And, twice a week, you have an adult class and a kids class, Monday and Friday or whatever it would have been. And we would teach 30, 40, it was a big club, so it's maybe 30, 40 people at different times. And And that was an incredible experience. And I didn't realize it then, but now looking back on it, it's like, wow, that really is something that a lot of kids would never even dream of, being able to have adults that you're teaching, 20 adults, 30 adults that you're teaching a martial art to when you're only 15 years old or something like that, right?
Yeah. So you really adopted a leadership role early on.
For a while, yeah.
Yeah. But then did you go through that experience like I did? I think I got my red belt in Taekwondo, and I remember the day when I realized I got to learn more than just kicking and punching. And I was it was at a high school, and it was our first year at a high school, and I was lucky enough to have my own place. Me and my friend rented a place. We didn't go to university right away. We took a year off, and we had this party place above an ice cream store in the industrial area in Regina. But the guys that owned it had like beach volleyball court in the back. And so we got to like play beach volleyball, and then everybody have maybe too much of a drink, and we'd square off. And I remember at the time I was with my friend there, and he's kind of like this, and we're squaring off like this, and he's a wrestler, and I just kick him super hard in the head, and it was like, whoa, and it's great, and I thinking it's done. But he's tough and strong, and he just kind of walks it off, and he comes over, shoots a leg on me, puts me down, and I got nothing. And I'm like, it doesn't sit well with how that thing started, Like, yeah. And did you have a moment like that?
No, I never really. I was never a fighter, to be honest. I was always a lover, a joker, big time joker. Never ever fought growing up. I mean, little tussles as kids or whatever, but no, like I was never getting into fights. It was always, martial arts, like Taekwondo competitions would be it, and then years and years later, MMA. Like I think I've been in maybe 3 or 4 drunken party fights or bar fights or something like that, and I don't. If I never did them, then I think I'd be better off. I didn't gain anything from those fights.
Yeah, you were brought up better than me, probably. I'd much just say that. But aside from that, how did you move from Taekwondo through to your next sort of adventure in sport?
So Taekwondo, among other sports, skiing was big as a kid. There was a ski hill that closed down, so then my parents packed up the whole thing. Like, hockey was a bad word in our family. I couldn't even speak about hockey. We didn't watch hockey because, I was the youngest. I have an older sister and then an older brother, and my parents just thought early on, they seen all the other parents that spent so much time on the road and so much time in the rinks, and the whole family would have to sacrifice for this one boy that played hockey. And they decided very early on, well, we're not doing that. So when all my friends played hockey, and they were great hockey players, and so I obviously wanted to play very badly, and so eventually it led to skiing as a family. They said, this is why we're not doing that, and we can all be skiers, and then we can all have fun all day long, right? Rather than us traveling 5 hours on the weekend and having to pack up the whole family to do that. So we were big time skiers, and then eventually Taekwondo took over because the skiing, just the hill closed down. My parents would travel, I think, for 2 winters, or at least one winter, maybe 2. We traveled like 3 hours for the ski hill that was in Cape Breton Island, and we would spend the whole weekend in a hotel, and we would be on the hill all weekend for the winter. So that happened for many years. Base softball, played very competitive softball. But then eventually football into high school, when I started to meet new people and got introduced to football, and that I was a running back, wide receiver, a punt returner, did very, very well in high school, and had aspirations in my mind of maybe, I always thought of myself as going to the highest level, which I think everyone should. So I was thinking, oh, you're going to go to the CFL. Maybe CFL is not the highest level, but in a Canadian's mind, CFL is the highest level. Yeah. You don't even dream of going to the NFL. But so I went to university eventually.
Yeah, sorry, you were playing three positions: special teams, running back, and receiver. Were you playing defense too?
No, the coach never really played in high school. I never played anything other than offense in special teams. I think mostly because the offense was built around me, and it was just so much work for me that he didn't want to have me on the field on defense as well.
Yeah, but, so you must be really fast. Did you ever run the 40?
Yes, many times in university. Yeah, I think my fastest 40 time. I don't know if you know 40 times, but fastest 40 time I think was 4.42.
Oh, that's really fast, man.
Yeah. I was never the fastest. Obviously, like I'm pretty small for a university anything. So when you get a 6'2" guy that's really built like a sprinter or whatever, there was usually at least 3 or 4 people that had a better 40 than me on the university team. But when it came to side, I believe I was the fastest on the team. You know, they were fast in a 40 time, but when you factored in juke, jiving, and shuffle steps and stuff like that, spins and stuff, nobody really in open field. Nobody ever touched me. It didn't matter how good they were. So.
That's awesome. So that's a real leadership role again there, and a lot of responsibility for you to take on the team. And so you go through the football time, and
the football led me away from the martial arts. I was training for nationals. I wanted to win nationals and go to worlds so badly for several years in a row as a junior competitor, and my coaches were always saying you got to stay lean and little for Taekwondo. Even in high school, there was times where mom would pack me a boiled half a chicken breast and a piece of celery, and go to school, and I wouldn't even eat the celery, and I might nibble on the disgusting boiled chicken breast. I wouldn't eat, and so I was really messing my body up as far as dieting at a very early age. And I remember my parents did not want me to do this, but they wanted to support me, right? So they definitely wanted me eating, but I wouldn't let myself eat. And I remember at different times putting the pressure on myself. I knew there was Nutri-Grain bars in a certain spot in the house, and I could have ate the whole box if I wanted. My parents wouldn't care. I would sneak to the washroom at night when I was starving, and I'd open it and eat it quietly on the toilet, and then bury the wrapper I'd bury it in the garbage can so nobody would know I ate it.
This isn't a cry for help, because it happened a long time ago and you got through that.
Oh, I laugh about it. It's just ridiculous that I was such a young person doing these things.
Yeah, we do funny things.
But so anyway, the football coach was saying you got to be bigger, because I was only ever 150 pounds, 5'9", and 150 pounds is not a very big football player, even in high school. So at a very early age, as soon as I started football, it was this one side saying, get bigger, get stronger, get bigger, get stronger. And there was the martial arts side saying, you got to stay as lean and as little as you can. And so I think maybe Taekwondo just seemed like I did it my whole life, and maybe, this is exciting football, and I'm going to go somewhere with football. So I kind of just left martial arts completely. And I think I went to nationals, junior nationals one last time, and I made it to the finals. And there was a big argument or whatever over the semifinals. And I think it wasn't until like 1 a.m. that we fought. And I ended up being really, out of my element. And I'd never made it to the finals before. And I ended up not fighting very well and just kind of being lazy and methodical. And I lost the last time, and I had never done it again for 10 years. So I went into football.
Still at that level, that's pretty impressive to get to that level.
For sure. And it was a long time ago, but I do truly believe that I would say that I would have been a better athlete than whoever that guy was. In reality, he was probably just more. I know he was a big competitor from Montreal, and Montreal is crazy with their Taekwondo. Yeah. And he had won, I think, the previous year, so he was very experienced on a high level. I think probably the experience. I remember him scoring a few early points, just like couple kicks and seeing the scoreboard be like 3-1 or something like that. And as soon as he got a good little lead, he kind of just ran away, and I didn't have that oomph or whatever to go after him for that win. So yeah.
So
yeah, I left Taekwondo, went to university, played football for 2 years. That wasn't my thing. University wasn't my thing, and football was university. Kind of, there's a lot of politics, I think, in football at that level. You know, how much did we pay to bring you in versus this player? How much did we pay them? And all that stuff starts to come into play, which high school doesn't. And so I left football after 2 years of playing and went into the trade, started carpentry.
Oh, sweet. And then, so how do you get from football to carpentry now back to mixed martial arts?
Well, there was a bit of a process there. A lot of drinking and smoking and unhealthy lifestyle, eating fast food and stuff like that in my young 20s. Once I got into the trade for probably almost 10 years, I was into the party lifestyle as well. And then after a few years, I met my girlfriend. She's from Fredericton, New Brunswick, where I live now. And she moved to Antigonish, Nova Scotia, where I'm from, where St. Francis Xavier University is, where I played football. And she went there for human kinetics. And I met her in her first year, and I basically just mooched off her for 4 years. I lived in her house with her, and, you know, her and her 4, 5, 6. There was times where I was living with 6 girls. And so I went through that. And when she was done university, after 4 years, she moved back home because she didn't have a job in my small town. And so I love her and wanted to stay with her. So I moved to Fredericton, and at the same time, I got my red seal in carpentry and decided to transition to the shift work in the oil sands. For a long time, I had the plan, I want to get my ticket in carpentry. When I get my ticket in carpentry, I want to go out to Alberta for a few years while I'm young, before I have kids, before I'm married.
Yeah.
Get good money.
Red seal in carpentry take you what, 3 or 5 years?
4 years.
4 years. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I believe they're standardizing that. It's all 7,200 hours now, all trades in Canada. It used to be electrical was more and plumbing was a little less or something like that. Now it's 7,200 hours. So about 4 years of the average worker.
Cool. So
I did nothing but, you know, party and drink and played flag football and stuff like that for fun. But sports was completely out of my life for a very long time. And when I moved to New Brunswick, I was doing the shift work for, I think, 3 years. I did 1 week on, 1 week off, or 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and I'd fly to the oil sands in the back. And I was happy, but I wasn't truly satisfied. It's not the greatest lifestyle, living in a camp by yourself with a bunch of cranky men, disgruntled employees. So it's not the best environment, and I could definitely feel it weighing on you over time. It wears on you. And after 3 years, my girlfriend, who works for herself she does business coaching and personal coaching as well, and she said, like, what would make you like so happy? What would be a dream come true if you could do? And I was like, thought about it for quite some time. I'm like, be a professional athlete of some sort. I always wanted to be a professional athlete. I thought it was going to be go to the Olympics in Taekwondo, and then I thought it was going to be go to the Olympics in freestyle skiing, and then I thought it was going to be football. And, you know, it was like I always thought there was something I could do physically to make a living, and that would be a dream come true to do that. And she said, well, if you want to move home from the oil sands, from out west full time, and that way. Sorry, before that, she said, well, what could you do now? I was 27 when she asked me that. She said, what could you do at 27? And I said, martial arts. I think I'm still healthy and I'm young enough and I have a background in it that I can still pursue a career in this.
Yeah, you could do bowling, you could maybe do baseball, but you say I think I can do mixed martial arts. But I like it. I
Well,
like
mixed
the I like
martial
the
arts is a unique mixed martial arts is a unique sport like that, I think, because a lot of these sports, I don't know whether it's that they have so much history or whether they have, I don't know what it is, but you can be a bum on the street and have 4 or 5 first round finishes in some random league and get your name out there, and all of a sudden you're on Dana White's Contender Series, and then all of a sudden you're in the UFC. Like, we see it. I see guys debut that have less experience than I do, and I've only been doing it for 4 years, right? So I think that was really a big factor, was like at my age and where I was, and in this city, there's my coach Andy Young has Evolution Fight and Fitness, which I'd never even been exposed to martial arts, MMA gym until this. And she said, so I said, I think I could do MMA. She said, well, there's Evolution is in town. Why don't you move home? Don't worry about your income. She said, I promise I'll replace your income, and you just pursue your dream. And so I moved home, and I decided to take my first amateur fight, and I did a full training camp like a professional fighter. You know, I was there during the day, I was during the evening, putting 3-4 hours in, even for my very first amateur fight. Yeah, I treated it like a professional fight. So that led me on to my road. Why I never looked back after I decided to move home and start MMA.
Yeah, and man, I think it's awesome to hear that, and you really are living that dream. And what I love about it is that you're a pro athlete, you're a pro MMA fighter, you're ranked top 20 in Canada for pro bantamweights, and like for Maritimes, I think you're number 1 across the board. So that's got to make you feel good. But also, it seems to me there's some other things. Like what's the next goal? Like, you came out to Saskatchewan and you're ready to fight on any card, it seems like, when it comes out there. And I know you've just gotten through some injury stuff and fixed some surgery, so you're going to be stronger after that. But it's really cool to hear the story and to see sort of where you've ended up and where you are now. But after she says something, I mean, now you got your happiness. You know, what's the goal, you think, now?
Well, to be honest, when I say a professional athlete, I am a professional athlete right now, but that isn't my goal. I want to be in the UFC or a main. I basically, my goal in my mind is that I want to be able to support my family for some period of time solely through martial arts. Right. That will be fulfilling for me. That right now, yes, I'm a professional fighter, but that's not the professional that I want to be. I want to be the professional that, you're making legitimate money. You're making a life for yourself and for your family. I don't, for some period of time, I want that to happen. And then I think I'll be truly satisfied with, I won't have those what ifs or could I have done this or anything like that. And that's my biggest fear, is that, and was always my biggest fear, is that I always felt like when I left sports, I had a chip on my shoulder. Like, I thought I could have did something, but I didn't. And I didn't want to be one of those guys like, oh, I could have did this and I could have went here. And even if you're not saying it, just believing it or feeling that felt wrong. I wanted to legitimize it or actualize it for myself.
Adam, it was so funny because I remember the first time we did our interview pre-MFC2, and you said that to me, and I was like looking at you, and I was like, either this guy sounds like a weirdo, or there's something. And then, dude, you come to the ring before the Eric Wilson fight, and I'm sitting there commentating, and you're like doing spinning, crouching tiger, hidden dragon kicks before the fight even starts. And Eric's out there, but I'm like, oh no, like I'm scared for him now, because you are now. And I'm like, oh yeah, this guy is talented. He's powerful. He's coming in pretty heavy. And I get it now. He's like, I can't waste this. like I get what you're saying. So it's kind of like, I got these things that I got to show people that. And then of course, even the hand was up on the kick, you went right through it. And man, talk about power and technique. And it was awesome to see. So I love the fact that you speak to that. But on the flip side of that, you can see it. You're like, oh, this guy's kind of cool to watch because he can do things a lot of fighters wouldn't even dream of doing.
Yeah, for sure. I do believe I've been told my whole life, that I think I'm a pretty humble person, and I try not to brag, but sometimes it might sound like bragging when you just describe yourself if you're really athletic like me, and I have been told my whole life that like you're one of the fastest humans I've ever seen. That it's just like everywhere I go, it's like, wow, you're so fast. And when people wrestle with me or people do anything with me, it's like, holy, in university, we'd be doing combative drills with the running backs would be always against linebackers. Well, university linebackers are pretty big dude. I was winning them every time. They're probably 6'3", 230 or 40 pounds. But when you put us in a little pylons and you push pull drill or something like that, I would always win. So I always felt like, I don't know how to describe it, but I always just felt something different inside of me.
It's just cool to see it because and to show you to have you perform it, and then to actually do it in the ring was pretty amazing to see. Now let's talk about like one of the things that we talked a little bit about family and hockey and things like that. But when the purpose of fighters, coaches, and fathers, which you essentially fill every category of it. But it's also looking back as to, some of the greatest advice that maybe you've received from your family or your father that got you through, sort of struggles or things that you needed. Is there anything like that you found that some good advice that you could share with us?
As far as advice specifically that has gotten me through a specific tough time in my life, I don't know that I have something that got me through one thing in my life offhand. But the one thing that stuck with me that my father always preached was you'll treat others as you wish to be treated. If you want to act like a brat, you get treated like a brat, basically is what he would often say. If we were being a brat, you're usually getting that version of it, along with getting in the back of your head ripped up, grab the back of your hair and rip it up like that. But,
Adam Burke MacDougall's raised by wolves, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. So I really feel like that for me is the golden rule that, you treat people as you want to be treated. You respect others and you're going to receive a lot of respect back.
Yeah, I think that's it's great advice, and it's funny how that actually rings true. You can walk down the street. We did it I had my degree in psychology, did it as an exercise one time, and if you're to give someone a stern look walking down the street, they'll give you a stern look back, or if you smile, they'll smile back. It's this funny thing, and that just is you sort of mirror your world by being what you want to have in the world, and I think that's pretty awesome for where you're at right now. But now you are on the mend. What's next for you now after the great win at MFC 2? Do you still have a belt to defend out there?
I do. Yeah, I was originally after the MFC 2 fight. I was hoping to get on this weekend, the January 26th Elite 1, which is the promotion that I'm a champion with. They are having a card this weekend, but I actually got a last minute ankle surgery, so it wouldn't have worked anyway. But they didn't have a fight for me anyway as well, so that didn't work out on any at all. But I still got another 4 to 6 weeks, of rehabbing after this ankle surgery. And then I'd like to have at least 4 to 8 weeks of training camp before a fight. As a healthy person, I'd like to have a full training camp, not go from crutches and that stuff right to fighting, obviously. So there's nothing in the works right now. April, I think mid to end of April, Elite 1 is having another card. It's their 10-year anniversary. And I would say I'll definitely be fighting on that. I'll assume I'll be headlining that. I don't have an opponent. I haven't signed a contract, but I would say I'll be on that for sure. And as well, my coach, Andy Young, puts on his own promotion here in Fredericton, PKL Kickboxing, unbelievable world-class kickboxing. And he, after the fight in Saskatchewan there, kind of opened up his eyes to the fact that, well, if I can't get a fight, like a big priority for him is me in my career. And so he kind of said to me, like, hey, if you don't have any fights lined up and I'm putting this PKL kickboxing card on, we'll get you an MMA fighter and you can be the main event. It'll be kickboxing all night, and then we'll throw you guys in the ring for an MMA fight. So I never really thought of fighting MMA outside of a cage, but a win's a win. Doesn't matter if it's in a cage or a ring, right?
Well, and you did it in Saskatchewan, it was a good win for you. And
there was a possibility of a fight there in April as well, or no, that's in May, I believe.
I would love to see you out in events and do some traveling fighting guys. David Lee's guys at Toshido, Brian Bird's guys, because they're the guys that really have their foot in the door to the UFC, and starting to develop that. If you can beat some of their guys in those first shows, that's going to be, I think, a big step for you there. So I'd be focusing on that, even though it's another big long trip.
I'll take a fight anywhere. It doesn't matter to me. If I'm healthy, I'll fight whoever, wherever, for sure. As long as it's in the division. I mean, I did have a fight in Ontario that some people asked my coach if I would fight somebody, but it was at 145 pounds, and it was just like, I don't know why, with my goal, why would I, I feel I could beat some people at 145, but why risk it? I want to be the bigger man. I want all odds to be in my favor. So right there, if I step up a division, I'm kind of giving away a bit of an advantage that I could have. So I don't want to do that.
Yeah, understood. Well, I tell you what, it was exciting to talk with you, but it's even more exciting to watch you fight. And it would be great to have you back for MFC 3, as well as I look forward to seeing what you're going to do next, because you are a special athlete, and I look forward to talking to you again. So thanks so much, Adam Burke MacDougall out of the Maritimes. Really appreciate you taking the time, my friend.
Thanks, Jeff. Really appreciate the exposure.
You're welcome. Thanks for your support of fighters, coaches, and fathers. If you liked what you saw, subscribe by clicking the button to the left. And if you want more, check out our MFC2 recap with pics and video by clicking the button on the right.